Good morning, everyone. So I've got to declare this Audit and Risk Committee meeting open. Welcome. We've got two visitors, Debbie and Fiona, and they can introduce themselves when we come to 6.1 on the agenda, which is the first item up. So are there any apologies? I understand we've got apologies from Councillor Mike and Councillor Peter Johns. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Kerry, seconded. I think that either or, right? We'll give it to the Mayor. All right, she, in the corner of my eye. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Notification of items on the agenda. Mr. Wingman, Raj, there's nothing that you're aware of. Thank you. Chief Executive, thank you. Confirmation of our minutes on page 3. Can I have a mover? Thank you. Seconded. Next door, thank you. All those in favour, please. No discussion. Thank you, Councillor Scott.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Page 5 of the minutes, and it was a little while back, but I just wanted to check the voting. I think that the names of the voting were incorrect. So voting for the motion, I think it should have been Councillor Ward's, and against should have been Her Worship the Mayor.
Yeah.
Just note that the amended minutes as the resolution, are we happy with move and seconder? Right, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest for decisions on this? Sorry, push the talk. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? There are none. Our first report, 6.1, the audit engagement letter. Raj, I'll let you take the lead on this one, and you can also introduce Debbie and Fiona. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair, Mayor Tracy, councillors. 6.1 is a report and information report to talk about the audit engagement letter. I'll take the report as read, and just briefly, the report outlines the focus of the audit, and I've also included in the report the next steps. And I think Debbie is here, and I think in the following report, when we look at adoption of the LT or recommendation for adoption of the LTP, Debbie would talk you through the audit process, where we are in terms of right now and what the next steps are. So before we fire off to any questions, maybe Debbie,
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. So it is my pleasure to be here near the end of the LTP process. The letter that you have in front of you today really is a summary of the presentation that I did to you earlier this year, there's nothing particularly new in here for you. But I just want to introduce you to Fiona Elkington, who is going to be taking over in my role as the appointed auditor for your 2024 audit, your 30 June 2024. So I have there's a bit of a rotation policy that we have where I can only be your auditor for so long, and then I've got to roll off and someone else has to come on. So I think I have done 5 years, the maximum is 6 years. But it's an opportune time to bring in Fiona, and Fiona is based in Wellington, but she lives in Palmerston North, and she's worked in our office for many years. So I don't know if you wanted to say anything.
I just think that, yes, I was an audit manager in the Palmerston North office for a number of years, and so I've got quite a bit of local government knowledge. So I've previously been involved with Wanganui, Rangatiki, Horowhenua audits, and Terra a long time ago as a grad auditor, so very familiar with the local government sector. And because I still live in Palmerston North, it works well in terms of being able to come over and make visits in person as well. So
So Raj, are there any questions for the auditors, right? And also on the letter at the same time, right? The engagement letter. Now that has already been signed by Mayor Tracy, right? And probably normally we would have actually approved this well before the beginning of the LTP process, but because of a variety of factors, right, including the change in the Three Water legislation, there was a significant delay in actually getting that across the line. But are there any questions we want to either ask Raj or we've got 2 for 1 today. Excellent, thank you. All right. Are there any questions from the committee? Got any further comments, Raj, in terms of the process? I've got one. You'd be disappointed if there wasn't one. On page 9 of the letter, page 20 of the agenda, you've got a couple of dates to be confirmed. Crystal ball, because we haven't adopted the LTP yet, right? When can we expect those, right? No pressure.
No, but we will be wanting to get them out to you relatively quickly. So adopting 31st of July, I would imagine by mid-August we would get that to you, and then we would clear that with you and then finalise it soon after that.
Now I'm going to put some real pressure on you, right? We've got a meeting scheduled for the 27th of August. Be nice to get it, right? So that requires you to get a draft to the team with their comments back and then finalised by probably, right? I don't want to put the the staff under pressure, but they probably need that no later than the 19th of August, week beforehand, so it can go on the agenda. Then I think that would then just nicely wrap your involvement up, Debbie, right? Councillor Carey.
Thanks, Chair Philip. Just a couple of questions. On page 21, I was just interested, there was quite a long paragraph regarding professional fees. And what I was interested in, and one of the items there was some time spent on looking at the effective rate back in the 21 LTP. But what I was more interested in, really, I can understand what was going on there. I guess the view from audit was that we weren't possibly being fairly totally compensated for work done. But anyway, my question was around the timing. So in 2018, there was 641 hours of work done. In 2021, 753, quite a significant increase. I wonder why that was, but is that likely to continue for 2024? I guess there is a set fee here, which is $86,000, but I was more interested in the increased level of spend of time, and I guess this paragraph is getting around to indicate where the $86,000 sits amongst it all. But will that be reflective of a similar time from 2018? And just more interested in the jump in time and what we're likely to do this time.
Yes, thank you. So the $86,000 fee is a historic amount that was set probably back in the very first LTP 2006. All councils had a fee, and since then there has been an envelope, and it's increased ever so slightly. And so what this big area is talking about is that the hours to do the audit is one thing, and then the fee is a separate amount. The fee itself has been kept low, and your fee is probably one of the lower fees for the LTP. And the hours are there for a bit of comparison. Now, we are actually doing an exercise in our office at the moment with the Auditor General around the total hours that it's taken to do the LTPs for those that are complete. For you, we're still going, so we still need to do that exercise. And the hours that we're seeing this time around is significantly more. Part of that is because of the change in the uncertainties around the waters legislation, and then whether you're going to have a CD audited or if you're not going to have a CD audited. So there is a lot, like if you, when I sit, because what I will have to do is come back to you and do a comparison. These are the hours that it took. We are also looking at what are inefficiencies from, say, like from the audit team side, and within Audit New Zealand, we do have a lot of new staff, and this time round in particular compared to previous LTPs. So when we do those hours comparison, we will take some of those off, and so without analysing those 21 and 2018 hours, there'll be a combination of different things for it. But then we will look at anywhere that perhaps there might have been inefficiencies that could have been avoided. And so the Auditor General Mark Maloney has written, I think, to councils to say that this exercise will be being done. And then we will come back at the end and share that with you. So, yeah. So audit fees for LTPs have been artificially low for a number of years, yeah.
Councillor Sharon.
Chair Phillip, it's a little bit of a segue from Councillor Carey's question, because I mean, I'm very well aware that, you know, within accounting mechanisms there's rework, there's, you know, reviews, etc., etc. So you've explained in some part the work that you're internally doing. With respect, Chair Phillip, I'm sure all of us would love to have a debrief around the whole LTP process. Later on, it's acknowledged that we started this in November last year. So I would hope that the outcome of your internal review and us having a bit of a debrief about where any inefficiencies lay on our side could be incorporated into perhaps learnings and a review of how we might go forward regarding this. But I did appreciate the comparison, because when I first read it, I thought, oh, hold on, how did we fare, you know, years before? So I will look forward to seeing what that outcome might be. Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, just for everyone's information, yeah, I'm really keen to sort of review the LTP process. The team, probably the auditors are probably, how many LTPs do you audit?
I myself do 4.
Oh, yeah. So I'm involved in probably 5 this year, right? And I've been doing that, right? I even was involved in an audit before it became mandatory. So I was part of, sorry?
2004.
No, 2001, right, as a pilot for the new legislation. So, yeah. And of course, I wrote, I'm not sure if you remember, there was a jigsaw guide that was originally written in 2006. Christine Jones, who is at Tauranga City, and I project manage that on behalf of Taitura and NAMS. So I've got a little bit of knowledge on LTPs from the officer perspective, but also now from a governance perspective. So schizophrenic.
We're place then, aren't we?
So I've never audited an LTP, right? Fortunately. Right. Is there any other comments on this? Thank you. Now, if you want to slip away, I know you've got another priority, at least one, and I think that's probably the council's priority as well. So feel free. You want to make any comments, Raj? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Debbie. So Debbie, 6.2, we're talking about the LTP. There's a report on the LTP. So feel free to stay. You can feel free to stay for the whole meeting, but also we understand you've got other priorities as well, including one of ours. Thank you. All right, so with the states, you can stay here. Yep. All right. We've got a recommendation on page 9. Do I have a mover?
I'll move it.
Thank you. Seconded. Thank you, Councillor Carey. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried. Next report, 6.2, page 29. So is Raj, or are you going to sub-delegate this to Sarah?
Through your chair, I'll let Sarah run through the report, but prior to that, I think it'll be good to hear Debbie give an update on the audit progress. Any key observations or findings that Debbie and the team has identified. And also, Debbie, if you could talk about the next steps in terms of the HOT review and the audit opinion committee review as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. So probably one of my priorities that the chair was alluding to was getting your long-term plan to HOT review. So it's going to HOT review tomorrow. So the process is that we're nearly completed our audit. We're just in the final throes of pulling that together. It's going through review at the moment. We've got what we call a engagement quality review director as well that we have to factor in to have his review. And then we've prepared a summary document that goes to the HOT review team. And then the HOT review will look at it. They review all of the councils. I mean, not necessarily the team that I've got, but there's a subset of a team that reviews them all. We'll feed that back to us, and then I will be feeding that back to yourselves. I can just give you a bit of a heads up of what we've found and what we're putting to HOT review. And we're recommending an unqualified opinion, so which is a good opinion to have. There are a couple of areas that potentially might get what we call an emphasis of matter, which is really just us referring to disclosures that you have within your document yourself. Just because we believe that it's significant and good for the reader to understand, and I'll talk through those in a minute. When we go to HOT review, there may be some debate. It may not. They may say no, it's adequately described. We don't need to make that reference, or they might say yes, we think we should, or there might be something completely different that they come up with. So we'll see. But the points that we have highlighted is the first one is around the impounded supply. And at the moment, you are using the best information that you've got, and which is all you can do to include into your long-term plan. We are aware that there is a Tonkin Taylor report that's in the process of being conducted. And depending on what comes out of that, there could be some significant differences to what you've got in here. So while you're using the best information, it was more just alerting a reader that there could be something that comes out of it, and that you will consult if you need to. If you don't, obviously you won't. So there's that side. The other one that we've got is the Paihetoa swimming pool. And so council has got $2.5 million contribution to the pool, which is, we set a materiality level, and $2.5 million is about our materiality. The issue is that the pool belongs to council, and it's a $6.1 million project. And so at the moment that is recognised as a vested asset for the portion that's not provided by council. So the $2.5 million, the 6.1 less than $2.5 million coming into council. There is uncertainty around that because the project will only go ahead if the Bush Aquatic Trust can raise the funds that they need to raise. And so again, it was just a highlight to say, hey, this may or may not go ahead. And it's probably also important to protect council as well, because if you've got the swimming pool in the LTP, it shows that you're not necessarily locked into it if the fundraising doesn't come to pass. So they were the 2 points that we were looking at potentially highlighting in the opinion.
Thank you. Any questions on the opinion? Well, sorry, not even the draft. It's the comments on the potential issues that will be considered for the opinion. Is that the right wording? Complicated, I know, because. And if it's just, do you want to talk about the opinion review committee as well?
So when we do change, so we've got a standard opinion that we have, which is an unmodified, completely fair opinion. If there's anything that we do want to change, while it goes to hot review first, and some of these things can be agreed or not with hot review, if need be, there is an opinion review committee that is made up of a number of people across the Office of the Auditor General and representatives from Audit New Zealand. So I usually sit on that committee myself, but because I will be coming in as the appointed auditor, there will be other people from Audit New Zealand on that committee. And they stand back and they look at what I'm proposing and then debate and say yes or no, or and formulate the opinion. So yeah, so there's.
In my understanding, there's someone from OAG Technical as well.
Yes, definitely. There's legal, OAG legal, OAG technical, sector managers. Yeah.
It's the brains trust almost. Yeah. Councillor, thank you.
Through you, Philip. So what you're saying is that because of this seed funding, the 2.5 million, if they don't reach their target, but the point is there's another dimension to this. We don't know, we end up with the asset. We don't know their running costs and all that yet. So how can we?
So Sarah might be able to answer this, but you have got some operating costs included in your long-term plan to run the pool, assuming that it goes ahead.
Yeah, it's risk.
Through you, Chair Philip, within the long-term plan budgets from year 2, there is the operational cost budgeted and the revenue, the proposed revenue, apologies, and the proposed revenue from the exist business case. This will obviously be updated and reflected when we come to an annual plan and we have a bit more certainty around a go live date, what the prices might be. It's just based off the best information that we have available to us for this plan.
As you said, it's all about assumptions, right? And assumptions will change. That's all we know. We just don't know to the degree the assumptions will change. Any other questions of that? Sarah, do you want to take us through the rest of the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Philip. Because Debbie has just chatted around the emphasis of matter, I just wanted to, it's not included in the report, but I would just like to draw your attention to the pages that will be likely be referenced within the emphasis of matter. So in that long-term plan itself, the Dannevirke impounded supply information we've included is on page 123. It just talks around the background around the Dannevirke impounded supply. We also talk about this within our infrastructure strategy and the same sort of level of detail. And then Peter Wimsett and the Waters team have done a really good job within the Three Waters AMP, which will be adopted as part of the long-term plan, as part of our supporting documentation. He's really detailed everything about the Dannevirke impounded supply within that. So that is the disclosure we're putting in place for the Dannevirke impounded supply. And then with regards to Paetoa swimming pool, we have included on page 153, and it does go over to page 154. We talk around the Paetoa swimming pool, around the level of funding that we're providing, the level of funding that Bush Aquatic Trust have provided, will need to provide, the uncertainty around the external funding still to be secured, and that's just disclosed within our community facilities swimming pool area. So just highlighting those two things for your attention. So I'll take the report as read, and I guess I'll just kick off because I like the detail, because it seems to be me. On page 31 of your agenda, item number 5, we talk about the key changes to the LTP from consultation, because last time this was public was when we did the deliberations around our long-term plan. So a motion was put forward to the Chief Executive to reduce operational costs. We've detailed where these savings have come from. We also had, within that motion, we have deferred the Paetua Pool drawdown of our loan into year 2. This just provided a little bit more certainty on council's end for the external funding to be secured. That obviously came with some cost savings with less interest required for that financial year. We've also removed the development contribution budget that we had put in. So we had a minor budget put in for us to get the development contributions underway. What that looks like, that was one of the decisions that was removed. Then if we go down to policy and strategy changes, the infrastructure strategy, we haven't changed anything significant. We have made changes based off audit recommendations. We've included a lot more information around our asset conditions, changed graphs, because we do love a good graph that shows where the spend is over 30 years. It's quite a significant number when you look at 30 years. Moving into the financial strategy, the rates increases that we have presenting in the final LTP have changed, obviously, with the motion from item number 5, but as a result of we're changing the rate smoothing from the 6-year option to the 3-year option. So this goes on to page 33 of your agenda. I've included the table that's within our long-term plan, but it's showing where our actual rates increases are now falling. The rates increase is sitting at 11.14 compared to, I think when we had in the consultation document, it was 12.09 under the 3-year rate smoothing option. As a result of this, we have made the call to reduce, well, we have to increase, again, our rates limit for years 1 to 6 were no more than 11%. With the rate smoothing option change to 3 years, this meant we would have breached our rates limit. So we have made the decision to increase our rate limit in years 1 to 3 to no more than 12%. This allowed for that 3-year rate smoothing to be within our limits. Then we've also made the call to reduce our rates limit for years 4 to 5 because we no longer 4, 5 to 6 because we no longer needed the no more than 11% because we had changed our smoothing options. So that has now decreased to be in line with the rest of the long-term plan, being our bill +2 for loan repayment. Loan repayment has not left, and +3 for any level of service cost increases outside of the bill. Then the one that I think most of us will thoroughly enjoy is my 3rd bullet point under the financial strategy. Thanks to my audit friends helping me in this space, management have revisited the capital program. And as a result of that, we've pushed out a project that has no operational consequences other than it's just been delayed a little bit. But that push has meant that we are within our borrowing headroom limits. So that's a really, really great outcome.
Sorry, I was rereading what the bullet point. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. That was fantastic news, that bullet point. Absolutely fantastic. I'm sure, though, to make the decision to push that out, do you think there are going to be any unintended consequences from the infrastructure people as to the importance of us having timed that for then? I mean, I guess I'm trying to think of the implications of any other projects around it that might have to be deferred because we have extended the timeline on it. I'm sure there was some robust discussion. I see Hamish is online, so.
You, Chair Phillip. Peter and I and Marcus chatted about this at quite great length. It was one of the options that Mike and his team proposed Peter and Marcus revisit to see. Within years 4 and 5, I think it is, please don't quote me, but in years 4 and 5, the part of the main line that needs to be replaced is still going ahead. the reason we were having the second installment, second part of the project was just efficiencies to flow. You were already got your momentum, you were moving. So there could be inefficiencies with delaying it 12 months, but also there might be efficiencies gained from lessons learned. What could we do better? Can we sharpen our saw, I guess, to pencil to have more operationals, more savings within the project, unless Hamish or Raj want to add anything further.
So I guess my main concern to you, Philip, was, you know, if we still want to put water meters on, if we still want to, you know, that deferring it isn't going to impact on some of those other IIAF, INA, something, whatever, all of that stuff. Sorry.
Yeah.
Through your chair, it's a defer of 1 year. So it's not like we're pushing the project out significantly to create a large risk. Second part, I think Sarah touched on it. It's a discussion wasn't made by the finance team. It was in discussion with projects and looking at the AMP. So it was driven from bottom-up approach. They revisited the LTIP, the AMP programs, and look at the risk of that push. And it's been driven up from the AMP. So I think there's a fair bit of rigor in that process. And I think we asked that question in regards to risk. What I think that exactly the same questions, Councillor, you've been asking, you know, the team did explore, and they felt moving out in a year doesn't really create significant. It's not that the condition of the performance of that line has got issues. I think it's just want to replace that line to I guess, build more resilience in the network. It wasn't programmed as a result of a performance or condition of the network, of the pipe network.
I've actually got a supplementary question on that, yeah, right? And maybe Hamish might want to comment. Thanks for being online. Hamish, despite the snivels, I'd rather you be online rather than spreading your snivels. Thank you. The issue for me is capital doability, right? And this is a risk for the whole sector. And I think what I would be keen to see in comment from Hamish is generally we, as a sector, I'm making real generalizations. We say we're going to do this project all in 1 year, but to achieve any project in 1 year, normally there's a lot of planning and design going in beforehand. And the question I have for Hamish, could you actually do some of that initial planning and design within existing budgets? So when you maybe for your projects, so when you came to 1st of July, you're ready to press the button and do that project. I think Sarah's nodding her head for your information. Hamish, whether you want to comment at all, or maybe the executive.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Cool, great. Good morning, everybody. So apologies for not being there, a little unwell. Yes, absolutely. I'm glad we're on the same page, Philip. We absolutely looking at doing designs sort of a year ahead, and there's I guess money penciled aside to get that year ahead, ideally, so that we can just crack into some of these things without, you know, we know that the first 3 months of any financial year is for planning and for you know getting these designs in, so that only leaves us 9 months, maybe 6 months of actual construction season. So the last thing we want to do is be not addressing that in a timely manner. So yes, we absolutely are.
Yeah. Carry on. Thanks, Raj.
Through the chair, thanks, Hamish. Hamish is correct. Just to add to what Hamish explained, the other element that we're also looking at is approach to market procurement. You know, we're trying to see whether we can engage the market quite early in the piece, so that ensures that supply availability and timelines as well. So the team are working very closely with the PMO in ensuring that the capital doability is not just about our capacity; it's also recognizing the sector's capacity to deliver.
Right, and just a little tidbit to add to that is that we are looking at packaging up some of these projects to provide a good sort of pipeline of work for the contractors.
Excuse the pun. Right, Councillor Carey.
Thanks, Chief Philip. Just a question on this subject item. not technical, just back to Sarah perhaps. Just the third bullet point about the capital program was just the last phrase. I was just trying to get this clear in mind. I'm not sure because of the grammar. So the phrase is, however, there is still very little borrowing ability should an unforeseen event occur. As such, management have retained the recommendation to become a credit rated council. I was just trying to recall what that meant to us. Did we have a recommendation, or are we trying to, I just want to know what that means now.
Thank you, Councillor Kerry. Through you, Chair Philip. In our financial strategy, initially we were going to be in breach in year 5, and part of our goals, I don't know if it's a goal, but part of our strategies to help us in that space was we were going to, in year 2, look to become a credit rated council to enable us to increase our borrowing ability. I think a comment has been made to me around hedging our bets, and I don't think there's a better there's the better explanation than that. When we speak to our Treasury advisors and our Treasury experts, the level of debt that we have currently and the level of debt we're looking to be at within our long-term plan, it is prudent for us to go down this path. The amount of savings we're going to likely, I'm not going to say we will because my audit friend is here, but we'll get from becoming a credit rated council will be justify the means for us to go down this path. That's what that comment is. I think we should still, it would be prudent, would not be wise for me to say that we shouldn't go down that path.
Can I just ask a question, right? Please, right? Ballpark, what's the magic, right? When I was in, Raj's job, it was about 50 million of external debt was the tipping point of becoming a rated council to get the saving. I haven't done the numbers of late with the LGFAs, but where is that tipping point? Roughly, I won't hold you to it.
Philip, I think it was last week, we met with our Treasury advisors, and I think it's sitting around the 60 million. Our current debt at 30 June 24 is 69.2. Okay, so we'll move on to the next page. I think it's page 33, the revenue and financing policy. Raj, do you want to talk about this, as you know more than I do?
Thank you, through Chair. 5.5.3, this is revenue financing policy compliance with our funding splits, where we have in our revenue financing policy how much an activity would be rate funded and public funded. So we just want to bring to the council's attention about the 3 activities that we are in non-compliance with our revenue funding policy splits. Roading and footpath are not really an issue regards to non-compliance, and it's because the earlier years we are receiving funding from the cyclone recovery, so that has showed that we are receiving far greater grants and subsidies. And in the later years of the LTP, we are funding more depreciation. Part of that is a rate smoothing that we've done. And part of it too is, I think, through the LTP, if you recall, we decided to build up the reserves in the roading space in light of weather events and climate events, and digging into our depreciation reserve in the event of a major event. So that's how the funding splits later years do not align to our traditional funding in the revenue financing policy. So we've made those disclosures quite explicit in the activity statements, so that it's clear to any reader as to why we're not compliant, what were the reasons behind. Community buildings is an interesting one, where as we are doing the budgets and making through the changes that we made to the fees and charges, and I think there was some rigor discussions here about balancing the fees and charges to affordability and usage and utilization of the buildings. So where we landed was the fees and charges in the earlier years were compliant. The revenue funding, but later years it wasn't. And what's driving in the later years is the valuation that we're doing, the depreciation cost is coming. So the operational costs for the activity was increasing, but the fees and charges were not increasing to that same level. I left it there as a non-compliant because we have another project in the LTP, rationalization of buildings. So I guess the reason why I've left it in there is a trigger for us to say that we are non-compliant, but the intention is that we want to rationalize the buildings. And once we go on to the rationalization, it may mean that reduction in operation costs. We may not own the number of buildings that we currently own, reduction in insurance costs, reduction in depreciation. Then I think gives us the ability to revisit the fees and charges again to see whether we want to fit within a new funding split. So I think I've left it in there just to acknowledge that this is something that we need to resolve in this LTP, and that's what we indicated. So, and similarly, that's the disclosure that I've made in the activity, that this is what we are planning to do to make sure that we either remain in compliant with our funding policy, or once we've done that exercise, we'll revisit the funding policy as part of the coming LTP. So that's surrounding financing policy. And the rating policy is just two things. One is creating a summary page just to bring in 2 pages what the funding splits are. And we felt that'll be good for the reader. And this was something that auditors raised to us to say we had it in the last LTP, but we didn't have it in this. I thought it was a good idea to do that. And the second bullet point is something that we didn't include in this LTP. In a sense, it was not required by the Act, but it's a very useful information that we had in the previous LTP, and we felt it's good for us to bring it and include that table in as well. So those were the 2 significant changes that we have included in the revenue financing policy and rating policy. Are there any questions? And Sarah can go on to the capital and operational budgets.
Raj, the capital budgets, the transportation program, as we are aware that in LTP we have had an indicative change come to us, so we have reduced our program to match the funding we've indicatively been advised. Another change within the capital budgets is the Dennewick impounded supply. This we've as part of the audit, as you might be aware from Debbie drawing attention to an excessive matter on the subject, was quite scrutinised by the auditors, and rightfully so. Upon our work and upon our review around the budgets that we'd proposed for the Dennewick impounded supply, we have increased this budget by 1.5 million. So the increase of 1.5 million, 500,000 is to include the land purchase that may or may not be required. This will come from our general purpose reserve, but we're just putting it in the budget so that we're all transparent and know what's sort of sitting in there. The other $1 million is from our work that we've done, the budgets that we have in place are to implement hopefully 3 bores, to implement new water treated reservoir tank, and then to have money for any remedial work that may be required, and that budget is sitting at 1.1. So it's not a significant budget, which is where the uncertainty comes from as well. So we've made this call and we have been quite transparent with our community that this is a really big topic within our community, and we will be consulting on any issues outside of these budgets. So I just want to stress that within the current financial year, well, not current, but current, the 24 financial year, we brought to you additional budget requests that were approved outside of our funding, outside of our budgeting process would be the best way to describe it. Those budgets, so we are not proposing any carry forwards, and everything has been reforecast within this long-term plan. So those budgets have not been spent. We've reforecasted within the planning cycle to incorporate them.
Thanks, Chair Phillip. Can I just ask Sarah how the figure for, considering that that land purchase, those negotiations are there, how the 500,000 was calculated?
Through that, sorry, my apologies, through you, Chair Phillip. That would be a Peter Wimsatt question. I don't have the knowledge. Raj looks like he might.
Chair, we're still in the process of negotiation. This is just a rough estimate that Peter has put in, which includes all other associated costs with the land purchase, regards to legal fees and surveying. So it's an estimate. We are still in process of negotiating. And I think Peter's expectation is that once it's done there would be a paper to council to confirm what what the cost is for the land purchase and seek council's resolution.
Nearing the end, I promise. Next item is operational budgets. So we have reviewed, our lovely Sutherland waste manager had reviewed the waste management activity, and we have made changes to reflect the tonnage and where it was sort of sitting. And this contributed to a reduction in the budgets. No other significant changes outside of what was addressed on item 5. And then on the last section, section 6.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it, Councillor Sharon.
You thought just before we move off, section 5, 0, under fees and charges, you've indicated there are no significant changes. So the discussion and the resolution we agreed around the cemetery fees, that's not considered significant.
Great question. They probably are significant, and I haven't just detailed them, but those fees and charges have been reflected in the proposed fee and charge. I think from the deliberations, I took it as we were proceeding, so I haven't changed it since, but I understand where you're coming from, and we could have listed that within this section, so I do apologise.
Well, I'm just curious as to what creates a significant change, whether or not it was a tweak, but given the public interest, I just thought it might feature, that was all.
Noted for adoption.
Yep. That's the appropriate. Yep. Carry on. Yep. Thank you, Councillor Sharon.
Item number 6, Raj kindly pointed out to me this morning that we're not quite sure what we were talking about when we wrote number 6.1. So I do apologise.
You have that in writing,
We don't know. Apologies. Total rates increase for year 1 is 11.14% compared to 10.3 consulted on. That is correct. End of that paragraph. We've also put a table in that shows where the UAGC has landed, and then Gavin's pretty graphs that show the distribution. You want?
Just very quickly, through you, Chair. What we were trying to do, councillors, is ensure that where the rates landed, 2 things. One is it's similar, consistent what we consulted on. The other element we were trying to do is to bring in the bell curve, and that's what we're trying to do, and not significantly. And I think that's why I've just highlighted very simply to say that you can see the shift from the draft there, where concentration was in the 12 to 16%, and then the shift in the final is 8 to 12. So I think that is reflective of bringing it in and addresses the concern about the outliers and also the concentration, to say that average rates increase is 10%, and majority of our ratepayers who receive a rates bill is hovering around the average. I think that's what we're trying to do. So it's great work by Gavin in trying to bring that into a really good bell curve.
Hoping he was going to take this section. Balanced budget. This, we are required under the Local Government Act to operate under a balanced budget unless it is prudent for us to not. So this long-term plan, we're in a not normal situation, I guess would be the best way to describe it. We meet the balanced budget benchmark in that we're green. The benchmark you'll see within, I can't even tell you the page number off the top of my head, is green throughout the whole long-term plan. However, we are budgeting a favourable budget within this long-term plan. So within years 1 to 3, we have significant revenue coming in that is not offset by operational costs. That is your Cyclone Gabrielle funding. So it's a capital subsidy that's coming in, and then the expenditure going out is capital. So operating purposes, we are budgeting a profit within those first 3 years. Within years 4 to 10, we are increasing our depreciation funding for our transportation and our 3 waters and I think our community building's off the top of my head. That also means that we're budgeting a profit in those years within the long-term plan as well. So in an ideal world, your balanced budget benchmark, you're green, but you're not green by much, is my basic understanding. But I know I have a subject matter expert sitting at the front of the room on this. So I'm going to take your lead. Sorry, Philip, Raj, if you want to talk about this any further. Not me.
Yeah, for full disclosure, there was a group of people in 1999 that actually developed Section 100 of the Local Government Act, which included the then Auditor General. The Deputy Auditor General, Greg Sholem, he was actually a CFO at Wellington Regional at the time, a couple of policy people, and still in working for DA. We actually wrote the section, including all the background information. The Minister of Local Government. She at this time says, great idea, thank you very much, but we'll defer it, put it as is into the 2002 Local Government Act. So that's how I know about this section. But Sarah's absolutely correct. Now, the other curveball, since Section 100 was written, there's financial prudent regulations. So they actually require a revised prudent regulation that there is actually no requirement to actually resolve that you're not being prudent by having an unbalanced budget as per the prudent regulations, but Section 100 is a higher level test for which there is a resolution required. So that's why you agree in your graphs. My Bush lawyer, right, said to me, the Act always supersedes the regulations. So it's, to me, the Act that you've got to comply with, not necessarily the regulations, because regulations allow you to have an unbalanced budget. You just got to discuss why. And I think this is really important, and people traditionally have focused 100 on being like, you've got an unbalanced budget, so you're running a deficit, not a surplus. But the people at the time said, if you've got more money than you need for operational purposes, you should actually be saying, are you actually being prudent in actually having more money than you technically need? And therefore you should disclose that as part of what I believe is Section 100. So to me, it's actually saying, and the Act requires council to consider 4 things, and the 4 things are listed in the report. I'm going to quote them, but the Act was also quite specific. It didn't say and or, it said and all the way through. So you've actually got to consider all 4 factors and say, is council actually being prudent when it's setting its revenues, whether it be higher or lower than what is a surplus or deficit? So hope that was that the direction you were hoping to explain? All right. So and also, if there are councils that have traditionally had unbalanced budgets, and they have, in my opinion, poorly disclosed it and had poor resolutions around the reasoning for it. I think Audit this time round, I'm a working council, that I had to assist in writing a paper to get it past Audit. All right, so I think not the standard's gone up, right? The emphasis from Audit is to a standard. Do you want to comment on that, Debbie? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's definitely something that, and I mean, we always have looked at it, but it's something that has come through strongly from the Office of the Auditor General, and they have put some guidelines out around what what is something that we might actually put in our opinion if it's unbalanced for a long time. And I mean, council still has to do the prudence resolution, but we might also draw attention to it if we think that it needs to be drawn to. Yeah.
And while technically you do actually have a surplus in the first 3 years, right? What is, I think, really important for this council is you've got rate smoothing happening the first 3 years, originally 6 years, and the fact that you've actually got rate smoothing indicates there is some financial risk, right? Let's talk about, to me, it's about and consequences on later years. I think that's why it's really important that council, when they adopt the LTP, prior to adoption, there is a specific resolution in that respect. Any questions on unbalanced budgets? Is that it? So I've got one question to help facilitate the discussion. As I was going to say, but be careful, right? I might get kicked under the table. There is a divide, right? What do you see as the risks remaining regarding the LTP? Since we're the Audit and Risk Committee, right? So what are the key risks you see part of the LTP? I know I'm on the spot here, my apologies.
Are you meaning for it to be adopted on time, or are you meaning within the LTP and itself? I'm always going to come back to finances. That's my happy place. If it wasn't my happy place, I shouldn't be here. So the borrowing headroom, I think I've said at finance and performance is something that keeps me up at night. It is one of my areas. And I think that's really driven from quite a large capital works program. And so for me, my risk mitigation is making sure that I continue to work closely with the projects team in this space and make sure we're able to deliver. But from my perspective, the borrowing levels and the capital program are probably my risks.
Thank you. Any other? Right. So on the flip side of that, right, Hamish is probably the one of the big spenders in the room, right? So to me, is from a risk perspective, right, is probably, and this is what I'm looking to develop a work program for the committee, right, is to say what are the risks that we as the Audit and Risk Committee should be receiving reports on from the Chief Executive and his team about the deliverability of the LTP. So I've taken from what Sarah's said that we also need, the risks are about capital delivery. So I'm just signalling that to both the committee and to the Chief Executive. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Hamish. Any other comments on this report? Councillor Scott?
Thanks very much, Chair Philip. Yeah, just an overall comment, if that's all right, or a couple of them. First of all, I wanted to thank staff for the huge amount of work that's gone into developing that in pretty uncertain times. So just wanted to express my gratitude for that. I'm not going to recanvass concerns that I've raised in general about the LTP. It's fair to say that I still have them though, but in this meeting, what I've got to think about now is what would be the risk of not adopting an LTP when we're this far along with the process, and that risk, I think, for our ratepayers would be even greater. So with that in mind, just to signal to you, Mr. Chair, that reluctantly I will be supporting all of the recommendations.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Tracy.
Thanks, Chair Philip. Just following on the discussion around reviewing the long-term plan process, I have also asked the Chair of Audit and Risk to review the budgets that we have seen and how they look like to other councils. Just in regards to one query that I had was just around the Pahiatoa pole. And that was everything's covered there, as far as the loan, but actually the project management office costs aren't covered. Now they're normally capitalised, but I guess my question is, what might that look like? Where does that sit and how we're transparent with showing that? And I guess I don't know if that cost is 50,000, 100,000 or 200,000. So just where that falls.
Looks like it's fallen to me and everyone's kept their head down. So
You're right. Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll take
try and take this one, Sarah. I think it's a valid question in terms of capitalisation and make sure that we are recovering as much of the costs as possible through the projects. In my view, this project shouldn't be any different. So it should be part of the overall project costs. So when the team starts looking at the complete budget, because basically we are working off some reasonably historic figures in terms of the cost of this project. We will need to go through that again and look at maybe there are other hidden costs that we're not aware of, but we'll need to do that sooner rather than later to ensure that the BAT are well aware of what the shortfall is in terms of raising those funds for the project, which will include the capitalisation of staff time.
Thanks. And I guess part of that is making sure, and one of the other bits, just that so Bush Aquatic Trust understand that risk and that requirement. Thank you.
Councillor Keary.
Thanks, Chair. Philip, I'll just go back a little second. So you mentioned the risk. To me, going forward, there is really for a small council a huge capital program, and the infrastructure demands that we're now putting into a long-term plan are huge, and the rating and the debt levels. So going forward, I think this council and future councils looking at debt and debt repayment methods and depreciation will be really, really critical actually. And I was always in favour of considering other methods of debt, but I've sort of changed my mind and been to a symposium recently. So off balance sheet debt seems to be, to me, is really, really difficult, complicated, and has some risk. So I think going forward, but I think for future councils, this is a critical area that we'll need to manage, and this committee will need to keep a close eye on, really, really, really close eye to me. Having said that, just from a bit of praise, really, I think given the resources we have and the limitation of staff, I think this LTP document is great. And I think I really feel good about it. The way it's presented, the clarity and the I think ratepayers looking at that, I feel pretty good sitting back as a ratepayer looking at the document, and with respect to, or we might not agree with everything in it, but I think the document and the presentation and the clarity of debt and what we're doing, I'd feel really good about it. So a bit of praise to the management and the team and councillors too, really. That's me.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions? I'm going to go right back. I'm sorry, I should have raised it at the time. Your rates benchmark, it was 11 and you've increased it to 12, right? Was there any consideration, I'm looking at councillors here, right, of actually leaving it at 11 and saying you've actually breached your own limit? Because that's what we actually strived for. And what we've done is we've done X, Y, and Z, right? Yes, we're only marginally over, but we're still over, right? I have seen it done elsewhere, right? There's no penalty for doing it, and I just wonder whether that's something you don't actually have to make a decision today, but it's something that you could actually consider as part of your adoption of your long-term plan, right? Maybe you might need to consider it before, right? Before your final adoption, because it's a change. But I would, you've gone out and consulted on your rates limit as being 11, right? Right. You've increased it to 12 for very, very valid reasons. You're only marginally over, but maybe that might be a consideration. Councillor Scott, no, I'm not surprised you want to comment on this one. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. More of a question, just so I can understand the process. So from what you're saying, I'm very, very much in support of that. I think that sounds like a very good, transparent way of doing things. For us to make that change, what would be the process for us to do that?
Yeah.
I know you said not a decision for today, but it's a decision for today. I don't have time to process much outside of audit requests. So if it's something that we would like to do, please signal to me now. I do have a follow-up question. Would you then be looking to leave the years 4 and 5 at what we consulted on as well?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just putting it out there. Is we haven't talked about it as much, right? Raj? Yep.
Through your chair, just to give, I guess, a different context to this. When we consulted in the LTP, our basis was a 6-year rate smoothing, building it up, and then that's where we said that the limit would be at the not more than 11. And I think if we had remained at the 6 and then now we're lifting it to 12, I think there's a really good reason for us to say bring it back to 11. Why have we done that? But I think we've changed from a 6-year to a 3-year. So that has changed the benchmark that we're going towards. And I think having it at 12, I think it is reflective of a resolution or the consequence and impact of the resolution that we pass at the determination that we're going to move away from a 6 to 3. So I think it is in line with the resolution. So I'm in favor of what Sarah's put in place, and I think we had a bit of a rigor and discussion about should we or should we not, because we're changing the financial strategy. And normally when we change something as critical as this, there is a process where we bring it back here and have a discussion. But my rationale, my thinking thought process was, it was I wouldn't say what consequence, it was a result of that resolution that we had to change it to fit with it. So the principles in which that we engage with the community, I think hasn't changed by this. We're not just because, oh, we can't fit it in, let's give ourselves a little bit more headroom here. No, that wasn't the reason. And the other thing I think I'm looking at Debbie and the whole process is that we are right at the end of taking this to a hot review. And here we are looking to change something really fundamental and significant in a key document that Debbie looks at. So I would say, in all fairness, your chair, I would say it's what Sarah's put in front of you in terms of the financial strategy, and I think we should run with that.
I was playing devil's advocate. Right? That's my job, right? Sorry, right? I think, right, by hearing all the points, right? I hadn't heard all the points. I think we need a specific resolution in both this resolution here, because I think you're right, Raj, it's actually a significant, right? It's you changing your financial strategy. And therefore, I think it also needs to be in the resolution of council as well, because to me and I think the horse is well and truly bolted on that, because we're probably at not 5 to 12, we're actually at 11:59 in terms of the process, right? Probably 11:59 in 30 seconds. So to me, is to make a change now would probably potentially upset the apple cart for no one. It's actually next year when you come to set your annual plan, that's when the 12% actually really comes home to bite, right? Bearing in mind it's election year as well, right? It's a political comment. The issue for me is I think it needs a specific resolution today. Having heard, right? I've had my view, right? And I think it's we need to acknowledge it in the resolution.
Make the resolution that we stay as the status quo.
Oh, no, what I'm saying is we act in the resolution, right? Well,
excuse me, Chair Phillip, we were sitting here listening to everything, right? And the team's presented well. I've diagnosed all this stuff. I appreciate where you're coming from, but we're pontificating.
Thank you. Councillor, do you have a comment, Councillor Sharon?
Once, I didn't think.
Oh, I saw your hand raising.
Okay, I was making sure you.
Oh, okay. Okay, right. Okay, right. in that case, right? Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Carey. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. Thank you very much. As written, yes, as written, yep. Now, I'm conscious of time, council or committee, right? We've been going an hour and 10 minutes. We've got till 12 o'clock and we're only on item 2, right? I'm not trying to stifle the debate, right? But I think we probably need to be a little bit more efficient in terms of our questioning. Can I just help the committee, right? I think we take the reports as read, right? And particularly we've got some big chunky stuff to do. Signal your question on terms of your page numbers, right? Don't ask the question, I've got a question on page, so we can actually then go back and deal with them all efficiently in terms of the item. Otherwise, we might be here into our workshop starting at 1 o'clock. If we need to, I don't want to do this, we could actually adjourn, do the workshop and come back and carry on 3:30. I don't have a flight to get. My flight's tomorrow morning, right? But I'd rather finish on time. We comfortable with that, committee?
We're not having a break. We're just going to keep going.
Does anyone need a break? No, I wasn't proposing a break. Would you like a break? Sorry? A rest stop? Do we need a rest stop? Thanks, Debbie. Right, okay, we adjourn for 5 minutes. All right, thank you. All right. Okay. All right. Stephen gone. Oh, don't sit down, Stephen. Right?
Wasn't sure.
Right, so 6.3, your risk management report. Take it as read. All right. Any significant key highlights or further information you want to bring to the committee's attention, Stephen? Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting. All right. Press my microphone. Right. Take the report as read. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks, Chair Philip. Well done all. So key highlights, just so in the emerging risk section, just as requested, had a look at biosecurity risks, and I guess the point that I'm overall making there is that we've had no requests. The MPI is the lead agency for that. We've had no requests for any specific assistance there. In relation to the emerging, we're asked to have a look at the security risks in relation to fluoride into the Dannevirke water treatment plant. Reviewed the the industry standards and our current controls, and we meet or exceed industry standards there. And just to note that we've got additional budget coming through this LTP for more fencing for the Dannevirke water treatment plant. And then just on page, regards to strategic risk register, which I've just reflected back to you what's gone into the LTP in a briefer form. And I just wanted to highlight on page 43 at 5.4 that in our controls or mitigations for our risks, there's four sort of key parts to that, and this goes to what Chair Philip was talking about earlier. Our financial strategy and the things that we say we're doing in the strategy is a key mitigation for our risks, and how this committee monitors our performance against the strategy and also for the infrastructure strategy will be important, and potentially that's something that we can review to look and see whether we're getting the right level of reporting through this committee. The other thing that's mentioned as mitigations right through our strategic risk register is the importance of maintaining effective relationships with our partners, stakeholders and government. And again, I think there's an opportunity to investigate how council could measure effectiveness of relationships. Generally, all of our controls at the moment are about how effective we think we are in our relationship. So I think there's an opportunity there. And the other key mitigation is that's highlighted right through is our insurance, and that we're well covered by insurance. And sorry, just going back to the 5.4.2 in the infrastructure strategy, there's the key point in there seemed to, for the mitigations, was the linkage between the district plan review, the urban growth strategy and the infrastructure strategy, and how they work together is a key risk mitigation. That's 6. Oh, sorry.
Keep going.
Thank you. Just at 6, I was asked just to review Aon Insurance's emerging risks, and I've just provided some commentary on how their risks interface with what we have in our strategic risk register. And probably the two things I'd like to highlight that we have more work to do on, and more work is underway, is just on our planning for disaster recovery and business continuity. So we've been doing work on that over recent years, but there's still more work to do around developing that corporate level business continuity planning. We're currently resting mostly on the work we did through COVID-19, but that was really focused on staff being unavailable and not looking across multiple impacts on business continuity. That's me, if anyone has any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Just looking at page 40, the risk register, more as a general question. In light of the planned rate increases, pretty significant rate increases that we have in our LTP, have we given any consideration to adding in a risk there around rates arrears, which may impact our planned revenue? Just wondering if there's been anything there. I've noticed in some of our reports, the debtors reports growing, but that potentially could be quite a big revenue risk for us.
Thank you. Any other questions on this report? This is probably a question for you, even, but more a question for the Chief Executive, right? I note there's two risks in here that are severe. So you can stay there, Brian. No need to comment, just get your notebook out. You got Three Waters and capital projects. I would be really keen for this committee to understand, for you to bring how you want to report, options for reporting those risks to this committee for the next period of time, both on the Three Waters and capital projects doability. Because I think there are some, and Hamish might want to take some notes here, right? Some projects that would be business as usual. For example, reseals, and I won't be BAU, but there are projects that have a higher risk level because they're not normal projects, but how we actually, as a committee, monitor the risks around capital projects. Not actually managing or supervising the projects, but it's about what are the risks, the key risks with projects. And I see Three Waters, there's significant risk with Three Waters. I see obviously risks around projects. Now, in the report, in stuff we talk about growth, it's sort of up and down all over the place. We don't know what's going to happen. You got is that high level risks around change in demographics, population, right? I would say even the economy, what that actually means, which flows into Councillor Scott's comments about years, etc. So to me, there's some broader parameters around, let's say, trying to put some words around of the impacts. And the last one I think we've talked about in the LP report was the risks about managing our debt and our interest costs. And I would also say it would be about cash flow. So as we go constrained times, what does actually our cash flow look like? And how are we actually managing it? Because that's both what Councillor Scott was talking about, but also managing debt effectively. Councillor, thank you.
Yeah, this is a question, Philip, to the Stephen. Could you give me the definition in between severe and high? And what caused it to change in scale?
So,
Page 40.
Yep. So the definition of so it's a combination of the likelihood and the consequences or the impact on council. So in the severe rating, you've really got to be at risks that are highly probable to occur, and that the impact on council is high or very high, as in generally for LTP matters, it's where the impact on council would be more than $5 million cost overrun or debt increase. And so the step down to high is just bringing that into the more moderate. Likelihood and the consequences is highly likely, and it could have a significant impact on council.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Carey?
Thanks, Chair. But just looking down and noted, you touched on it, I think, Stephen, but yes, the 5.4.3 relationships. I think that phrase there may be an opportunity to investigate is probably, we should probably throw that well away and get something really definite about this, because over the last 3 years, relationships have been incredibly important to us. Relationships have been important to us. But I think going forward, that we do have the management team and we have governance, and often those two don't really sometimes realise the importance of relationships at different levels. It was just came to pass just recently with Mayor Tracy and myself in a meeting where the relationships that Mayor Tracy had were pretty vital to something going on with in the operational line. But just but I think we need to get quite organised there and have a real think about the relationships and how we balance it between governance and management, and that's in a wider level from the political aspects down through iwi, but down through perhaps between alliance, the alliance and the teams here. So just I think that's pretty critical, but may have to look at that and but drill down a little bit and get some measurements or get an understanding there.
Hey, any other questions, comments? So your report also covers the work plan on page 45. Is the committee comfortable with that work plan, particularly our meeting in October, sort of setting your expectations? Anything that committee would want to consider?
Right.
Councillor Stroud, thank you.
I'll do this here rather than in the next item, Chair Phillip, but I didn't get a chance to compare the work plan with some of the incomplete or not started stuff further down, but I'm assuming that those two will align, because I've got some questions in the next report that I hope have been reflected in that work program. We'll get to it, Stephen, but I'm just...
The assurance report you're referring to?
Yeah.
Not the 6.4.
I know. I'm just trying to make sure they're aligned, though, because I'm just concerned that if we get to areas that aren't being addressed, are they being dealt to in a formalised work program?
Thank you. All right, no further questions. Any comments? So we go back to the recommendation on page 37. Do I have a mover? Councillor Sharon, second Councillor Scott. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. Welcome, Dan and Sally. 6.4, the Tararua Alliance Overview Report. Take your report as read. Is there any key highlights that you want to bring to the committee's attention? Probably, has the committee met Sally before? Okay.
Yeah, no, we'll just introduce Sally first of all. So for those in the committee that haven't met Sally, she's our performance manager within the Alliance. So a key part of her role is managing the performance framework that we have in place that has the performance measures of what we're going to try and achieve, which is what is presented to this committee in regards to the performance and financial audits that are taking place. So given that this is the second time I've attended this committee and first for Sally, I thought it would be good to have her attend, as going forward she's likely to be providing information through this report. But as I say, this is the first time that we've provided the report, so we've provided just an overview regarding the Alliance itself, the performance framework overview, the financial mechanism we have in place, and just some health and safety documentation that we use or manage in regards to health and safety. So first, I just want to ask if there's any questions or if there's any specific you want to touch on, and secondly, yeah, like to just get some recommendations for what information you'd like to see in this report going forward.
Thank you. Is there any comments, questions from members of the committee? Oh, sorry, Karen. Thank you, councillor.
Just a quick one, thank you, Chair Philip. In item number 6.2, you're obviously, it's all about ensuring the staff are well briefed. Dog incidents, what are those likely to happen to the team? All right, it's on page.
These are just, sorry, for you, Chair Philip. So these are just examples that have been pulled out of like the Downer basic management system. So we do have situations where Downer teams work for a chorus, for example, and they would go onto private properties, or our Three Waters team, things like that. And we actually have situations in Te Aroha where our supervisor, Steve Toomey, Three Waters supervisor, has actually come across an incident with a dog attacking. So yeah, it's just examples of what is discussed at the team's weekly toolboxes, just to make sure that we're continuously updating or briefing staff on potential risks that they may come across.
Councillor Scott.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Dan, for the report. Was quite interested in some of the health and safety elements down as documents that you popped in there. In a past life, I've done some work with the Downers health and safety system, so I know how much reporting is available through that system. I didn't quite know where to raise this, so I thought it'd be the right time now. We will be jumping to our health and safety report a bit further along, and we do have a very small snippet of information following a request from the chair. But just wondering how easy it would be for you to provide a little bit more detailed information. I mean, you're sitting there, you've given a really good overview in that report. I'd be really keen to see some statistics to see what is happening on the ground based on some of those category levels. Would that be an easy thing to provide?
Through you, Chair Philip. Yes, yep. So we do, as you say, we do have a lot of reports that we can pull that provide statistics such as medical treated injuries, lost time injuries, near misses, things like that. So yep, we can pull those reports and have these included.
Any other questions? You want some direction? Here we go. So what I'd be keen to see, right? What are your key risks? Stephen's hiding in the background, right? What are your key risks in terms of the alliance, right? And maybe it comes through the Raj's group, right? About the risks around delivering the services for the council, right? So, for example, have you got enough staff, right? You know the organisation better than I do. What are the risks? What's keeping you awake at night? Supply, increased costs, health and safety, right? And I see that there's various comments about cone rage and bits and pieces. What's I don't want to put, what's keeping you awake at night, right? But it's not, it's what's top of mind from a risk perspective in terms of delivery of services. That's what I would be really keen for you to report back. These are the risks. And some of them might say, we haven't got an answer to this one yet. This is unresolved, or this is something that was a risk and this is how we've actually resolved it. So it gives us some assurance that risk management is alive and well within the Alliance. And you're meeting your objectives, right? Because that's what risk is about. It's about uncertainty over objectives, isn't it, Stephen? All right, any other comments, questions? Yeah, sure. Councillor Carey.
Just very quickly, Chair Philip, just thinking about that comment, would I be correct in saying that with the reduction in funding, perhaps in transportation that's come through and tougher times, that one of the risks for Downers might be the pain gain share, so the opportunity to for a bit of profit in that area will be a risk or be a concern perhaps, will it?
Through you, Kerry. So as far as the pay and gain goes with the new performance framework that we have in place, and we're in added attention that we're going to put on the alliance, that pay and gain will be minimal compared to what we've seen in the past, due to essentially we won't be scoring as well as what we have in the past and against our old performance framework. In the downside of the alliance, the pay and gain isn't really taken into consideration when we talk about profit and things like that. It's the goal is to achieve next to no pay and gain. The goal is, when we set our target cost estimates, is that we obviously try and put in innovations and things like that to better what our target cost estimates are. But as Hamish mentioned in the past, it's trying to get blood out of a stone once you get to a point where you've put that tension. And we also don't want to be driving the wrong behaviours of having such strict target cost estimates in there that it may drive shortcuts need to be taken. So yeah, I guess the biggest risk that we probably have in regards to that gain share is that is used back in the community as far as doing sponsorships and things like that. So if that's quite minimal, then that's where we will see we may have to be a bit more strict around what we sponsor.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, this is a comment, Chair Philip. In this morning's Herald, there was a comment up there with the mayor and the roading department. They're out of step with each other towards road cones legislation. I don't know if this is the right place to ask, but we are your face, right, in public, right? So we're always being asked obvious questions. So going back to Councillor Scott's idea, if we could get a quick sheet, maybe going forward, that we can use, because we advertise you as a gleaming, I see you're up in the paper for an award, which is great. So that's where I would like to see going forward, because we back you 100%, 110%. And maybe we can find out where this legislation that seems to be, as Mr. English said, up in the air. There's no legislation on road cones. So moving forward, helping your case, helping my case, and helping the guy throwing the road cone, we could, I don't know, we need to move. We seem to be sitting in a pond. But anyhow, that's what I'd like to see, a bit of a quick shot. Thanks.
Thanks. Through you, Chair Philip, I have been working with the Tararua Alliance, and they're feeding me directly with some examples that we can share with the Minister directly. I think that's what he asked for. So I'm just waiting for some of those to come through where there's an obvious one that actually just doesn't make sense. And if he's true to his word, he said he'd change that. And I've also conveyed that to our local MP.
One comment, Dan?
Yeah, I guess commenting around the traffic management side of things, quite an interesting one that it's becoming quite a discussion point. Government is implementing a new guide around traffic management called NZG-T10, which is taking a more risk-based or risk assessment approach, whereas currently we run it under COPTM, which is essentially dictating to us how we set up sites, which is where the difficulty comes. And just going back to the question, well, the comment you made, Chair Philip, around, I suppose, risks that we have currently is that we have not been as compliant with COPTM as what we should be, given the nature, the district that we work in being quite rural. I mean, you look at just state highway versus traffic management we have set up, it's a lot different. So it's finding that right now, but until NZG-T10 is implemented here, it's making sure that we are being compliant with COPTM while trying to be as cost efficient as possible.
Thanks very much, Chair Philip. Just, I guess, on a related one, when we're looking at things from a risk perspective, and I think the mayor that Councillor Wallace was talking about was Auckland Mayor Wayne Brown, was in the paper. So just if people were wondering, when you're talking about a risk for us is we perhaps don't have the same level of traffic management as what state highways are. Do we have very many incidents on when it comes to people passing through our traffic management sites, to give us an indication of how effective it is currently?
Through you, Chair Philip. No, not that it comes to my mind. So, and I guess when the NZGTM is implemented, we're probably going to be more suited to that one than to the one that we've got. I mean, we have had things that have been really out of our control. I mean, the one that really jumps to mind to me is the Nemus where a truck's brakes failed when coming up to a stop go, but there's not much you can control around that. So yeah. Yep.
I might talk to you. It's Dan. I was aware of a case in the Bay of Plenty. An organisation, someone to yours, had done some work, moved the sign, and there was a traffic accident afterwards and a little bit of loose gravel. And the judge said, no, you should have actually left the sign for even longer. The fact the person actually was doing 120 kilometres on an 80 kilometre corner, no, probably actually 5 corner at best, has probably led to some of behaviour. So I think probably where ex-minister is coming from in terms of that it's the legislation is saying doing everything practical and common sense, no longer common as we thought it was, right? You know, common sense. So, all right, and that I like risk-based approach. Right? I think that probably what are the risks for each individual circumstances. And the other gripe that I have, right, I drive a bit around the country, is I go through a number of sites that I know have been there for a very long time. No one's done anything about removing the signs, right? Yeah. Right? And, you know, it's the problem we have, right, I've been told, is it costs a huge amount of money to actually go and change the sign. So how you overcome that within the current environment, I leave it to the experts, but Councillor.
Yeah, I'd like to move the recommendation, please.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mayor Tracy. All those in favour, please say aye. It's been carried. Thank you, Councillor. Risk Assurance Committee, Risk Assurance Report. Thank you, Dan. Sally, thank you. Back into the hot seat again, Stephen. Thank you. Just make sure you're getting your steps up. Right, take your report as read. Any key highlights?
Yes, thank you. So just at number 4, we're still reporting on the 2021 annual report audit. We're expecting that the 2022 and 2023 reports will be available for the committee at its next meeting. At number 5, internal audits, you'll see that there's 2 health and safety internal audits. So the first one is the Safe Bus on-site assessment and advice report that was done in 2021. So that was reported to the committee back in 2021, but it has not been back in front of the committee since then. So it's, I've produced all of the actions, recommendations and management comments for that. And that's particularly pertinent because we did not take part in the 2023 internal audit that Safe Plus completed for our region. And then just at 5.4, again, this is around transparency. Impact completed a review of our health and safety hazard register in 2021. So that hasn't been reported to the committee until now. So I've produced that as well. ask for any questions on any of that first. So there may be.
Councillor Scott.
Thanks very much, Chair Philip, and thanks, Stephen, for the report. I have sent you an email just to let the committee know that I'm quite keen in the health and safety champion role to dig into some of these in a little bit more detail. So I'm going to keep my comments general, if that's okay for the purposes of this. I am slightly concerned that some of these things have been sitting on the register for quite a long time and don't appear to have had a lot of movement. So a question or perhaps a request is if we can add a target completion date column to these, because that will help us monitor progress a little bit more. The detail of it, I think I might dig in, would be more helpful on a one-on-one basis, if that's okay.
Thank you. Are there other comments?
No, it's been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mitch. Tracy, you got any?
I've written again, like Councillor Scott, I've written a couple of comments that I'm happy to feed back to you as the champion, and especially around just those leadership KPIs and getting them written in, but I've put your name beside that.
Thank you. Derek, thank you.
Right, and the other thing that I just wanted to draw your attention to, which is 6.8 resource consents.
Yeah.
And I think that Roger may want to speak. Let's see any questions first.
So we're doing whole of 6. Any questions on 6?
Whole of 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
6.8.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I had some questions in the previous chapter.
Under 6?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All under 6, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, and it's related to the monitoring that we'd agreed to for the impound supply. Little concern that in 6.4, these ROV inspections are required every 2 months. It's been more than 2 months since the last one, and the one scheduled for May has not yet taken place. And there's a question mark I have around a decision is pending on whether to engage the contractor for the current inspection. So there's a few question marks in that chunky little section that I thought as part of our mitigation of risk, we were going to keep a close eye on monitoring what the heck is happening under that water.
Thank you. Floor's yours.
Thank you very much, Chair Philip.
Les Hamish wants to jump in as well at the end. Thank you.
Me, Tracy, ladies and gentlemen. We've just got a price to put we've purchased our own ROV, and the intent is that we're able to do our own surveys. So it's costing us about $30,000 every 2 months to conduct that inspection. So it is particularly expensive. However, the markings that were done on the depressions when they repaired the impounded supply, or when the impounded supply was repaired in June last year, have started to fade. So we have got pricing to firstly regrid the whole impounded supply, just to do a check in terms of what the current status is of all the depressions and whether any additional depressions have occurred. The cost of that will be about $42,000 because it includes a sonar. They need a sonar to support the being able to accurately maneuver the ROV underwater. Then to mark the depressions will cost another, from memory, it's about $30,000. So we'll need to put divers in again to actually mark the depressions.
72,000 we're up to.
Yeah. So it's not cheap. And that's obviously the motivation behind getting our own ROV and being able to do our own inspections. In addition, we have just received the report from Tonkin and Taylor, and so we're sort of bringing everything together at this point. So yes, there has been a gap, but my recommendation to council at this point is that we need to make a decision, or council needs to make a decision about how they intend to proceed with the impounded supply, and then we can start putting other things in place. But that's my recommendation.
Right, thank you for that. Councillor Scott. Right.
You, Chair Philip, just to add to that as well, I know I've now spoken with Blair. I've spoken with Blair Rogers, and there are other monitoring going on as well. So he has taken sort of aerial drone footage as well, and the other inspections are still continuing on a regular basis, if not daily. So we're quite comfortable that the monitoring that we are doing is identifying will identify any sort of ongoing risks, but also obviously the reports that we'll get through. So TNT do get all this data as well. So when they are making decisions, they will sort of look at all the historic things behind it as well. So yeah, there is other monitoring activities going on as well in regards to the impounded supply. And no significant changes have been noted.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Tracy.
So reading the report, and I guess that's, for me, that last one was a significant change, reading it in here. And I guess I'm just querying the escalation, the escalation process, and understanding what that means. And I guess it'd be great to, if the Chair of Audit and Risk can have a copy of that Tonkin and Taylor report if that's in. But I thought a metre difference was significant to understand.
If I can just comment on that. My understanding is that is the depression that's immediately at the base of the internal slope, and there were real challenge, or they were unable to fill that depression or part of that depression when they did the repairs because of the nature of where it sat within the impounded supply. So in terms of our understanding of the situation, there wasn't any critical red flags because we already knew there were some challenges with that particular depression and our ability to fill it in the way that they had intended to when they did the repairs.
So, yep.
So, and when those Rob's inspections are carried out, what paperwork is filled or what reporting gets done to say, to actually tick that box that someone can have a look and say the inspection's been done, there's no significant change. Where does that reporting line sit? Does that go through to the infrastructure manager or to the chief executive?
The reports come through to me, and then I send them through to Tonkin and Taylor. So Tonkin and Taylor review them independently and provide advice to us as part of their fortnightly monitoring report. So they review all the data that's captured on a fortnightly basis and provide feedback to council.
Shouldn't be. Councillor Steve and Councillor Scott.
Yeah, through you, Chair Philip. Roger, I just want to try and clarify it in my head. To get it right, it's $30,000 every 2 months to do an inspection. But as I understand it, tell me if I'm wrong, we've purchased our own unit now. So at that rate, we've probably paid that off 2 or 3 times. And then we've bought a sonar thing, which makes sense because the sonar can do the shoot of the depth. That's fine, I get that. So that's another 12 grand on the 30 grand. So So it makes up to 42. So that, because I remember in this room, us passing that to go and purchase one. That's correct, isn't it? We moved to buy one because of the costs. Right, so $30,000, if we already own it, from where's the changeover point? See, if we own something, we don't get charged for it, do we? 'Cause it's capital investment. I mean, it's ours.
Yeah, so I'm not referring to ours. I'm referring to the underwater dive company coming in and doing that work with their own equipment. So they wouldn't be using our equipment.
Oh, okay. So that's where I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
Those were the previous. Right.
Yeah, they were the ones that have been
Well, let's
doing
go step forward now. With the gear we got now, have we got rid of any costs?
Well, not to date. Firstly, because the lines that were originally marked around the depressions have faded, so it makes it very difficult to identify any movement in the size of those depressions. So that's the first consideration that we need to address. The second consideration is so that Blair can effectively manoeuvre the ROV in the water. It's particularly difficult. So the proposal is that the dive company will essentially put markers in the impounded supply. So they're obviously the ones that are most familiar with it, so that when he is in the water, he can easily manoeuvre to the various depression sites. So that apparently is the most challenging task in terms of actually finding some of these depressions.
And final, just to clarify it in my mind, so that capital outlay was worth doing for the ROV?
Definitely, because we've already used it in other reservoirs. So we can now maintain that monitoring, not only in the impounded supply, but across all the reservoirs we have in the district.
Like a drone detection.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, we can do those regular checks that we should be doing.
Thank you.
Right, Councillor Scott, thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Roger, thanks for your report. You were talking about, your recommendation is for council to make a decision and actually work out how we're going to proceed, which I entirely agree. I'm just wondering what the timeline is looking like for getting us that information to be able to make a decision, so we can actually just make a decision and away we go.
So the timeline we're working on is the end of August. So the draft report has just been released. Received it on Sunday. It'll go to the peer reviewer. We've got a meeting with the peer reviewer on the 30th, and there's a bit of toing and froing. So that draft report should be completed. From memory, it's about the 10th of August. Now we're also waiting for an independent report from Rationale on the whole water system. So not just looking at the impounded supply, but how we supply water to Dannevirke in total. And so those are our two key pieces of information to then provide, to analyse and then provide a recommendation through to council. So the target is the end of August.
I've got, so no pressure, Roger, right? We've got a special audit and risk committee meeting on the 27th of August. Is that too early to look at the risks, not necessarily a recommendation, but to actually go through the risks around the report? Or what do you see the role of this committee in terms of maybe deflect to the chief executive, right?
Yeah, through you, Chair Philip. It's hard to, I think what we could say the intention would be to provide an update around the risk elements, but without actually seeing the report and knowing the level of detail and what the peer reviewer may find as well, which experience to date would mean that there might be a bit more to and froing to iron out some of those risks maybe before we do present it. So I think, I think it might be ambitious to have that done by the 27th of August if it's going to be to the peer, but if it is done, what I can do is ensure we at least have the risk element to the Audit and Risk Committee. It might not be ready to make decisions as you note around that point, but potentially the risk part of it could be ready by then. But I haven't, I haven't seen the draft or anything yet myself, so we need to have a look at that.
Thanks, Chair Philip. I wasn't going to get into too much of the technical detail here, but just a comment really, because I remember the money we spent and the information we got back from the dive program we had last time. But I'm actually a bit staggered that we didn't have a digital pattern of this. I remember seeing the chalk marks and things because we watched them doing that stuff. But we do it with the drones. But I am surprised that we had a big Rob wandering around there, looking at all the holes and things. That I am amazed that we didn't capture digitally all those depressions and all those repairs and things. Maybe a bit naive about underwater photography, but just a comment. And well, if we're going to do it again, is there a method of capturing it digitally? So we've got this information when we start doing the bloody stuff ourselves.
Can I just comment through you, Chair Philip? We do have photos of all the depressions. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to in terms of a digital map of the impounded supply. And the underwater company haven't offered that, but so we could discuss it independently.
Just a very what I was referring to is accurate measurements. Yes, underwater measurements like we do drone surveying and things for land. I thought we would have digital measurements of that, because we have to have a lot of the really technical details of dam sizes and everything. So I was referring to a grid map underneath as well as
Sorry, through you, Chair Philip. It might be something we can come back with, but I'd be surprised if they aren't using some sort of digital method to measure those, because we're not when we're sending them down, it was actually we're not sending them down with measuring tape. Yeah. So we'll find out from the suppliers.
Right. Anything else on that little section of the report? 6, Mayor Tracy. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Chair Philip, and just for your reference, as part of that process before the decision is made, this is a high public interest, and I have committed to having a public meeting, because people need to understand the reporting and how a decision is made. So I think that's quite a critical part of it. So we've committed to that, and they can have those questions answered by some of the experts.
Trying to think of through your Chair, Philip, around process in terms of, would you want discussions in public before discussions around this table? Or do we bring it to this committee then, or to the council, then go to the public? Yeah, so do we do the public meeting after the council decision?
No, I think we need to so I think there needs to be further work on the process, right, before we bring back.
Through you, Chair Philip, I was just going to agree with the CE, because otherwise we're going to look a laughing stock.
Right.
Can we get at some timelines around those reports so that we all know where everything is? Yeah.
Thank you. Right. Anything further on section up to 6.7 of the report? We move on to now the resource consents. Thanks, Roger and Stephen, or Stephen and Roger.
Thank you. So this has come through at the request of the committee to provide an update on the state of play in relation to resource consents. So it's what I've set out here, and then Roger is here if you have any particular questions.
And that details for information that's in one of your wonderful appendices, isn't it? The green, the red. I wonder, well, yeah, and look, I think these are really important, right? I just wonder, Steve, next time is you just put a wee table like you do to say is, right, change, this is where we're at and recent changes rather than provide us, and only on probably the expired, the near to be expired ones. I think that's all right. Thank you. Any other questions? I've got to scroll back in. Should be efficient. So that basically the report and all the attachments, and time reading for everyone. No further discussion. Can I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Carey, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. Right, health and safety, six. Thanks, Roger. Right. Carry on, Stephen.
Thank you. Chair Philip, again, take this as read. I'd just like to also just take this opportunity to introduce Gillian Anderson, who took up the role of Health and Safety Coordinator around April this year. So doing a really excellent job in the first 3 months so far. So just in terms of highlights in the report, firstly, just around due diligence, and I think just acknowledging that there are some items that are well overdue now, and I think this is the opportunity in the next few months to really get that back on track, working with Councillor Scott. We're asked to bring forward, this is at item 4, some topical risks. So I've just, we've had 2 motor vehicle crashes, serious motor vehicle crashes involving council staff, which fortunately have not resulted in any serious injuries. So I've just highlighted our risk controls around those. At 4.8, we're continuing to see threatening or abusive customer contact. That's right across sort of customer services, libraries, animal control, compliance. So just highlighting our current controls there, and just noting that in August we'll be bringing through the new unreasonable customer behaviour policy. But just noting in that in the meantime, we are acting as if that policy's in place. So we are using ways of limiting customer contact where the behaviours become dangerous to staff. The challenge that I see with this for council and the work that we need to do is how we share information amongst ourselves, so that we can understand, like customers may have contacts with different parts of council and how to share that information between us. We don't have very good systems at the moment to make that easy to do. So that's.
Can I ask a question directly related to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. The threatening behaviour work that you're doing, excuse me, Steve, does that include elected members, or are we just focusing on staff? I'm just curious to understand if this was an overarching policy with some elements around the threatening behaviour towards elected members and threatening behaviour towards staff, whether there would be some consistency in how it might be approached. I'm just asking a question.
Thank you. That's a good question, and we've had discussion on it. And at the moment, I don't think we've landed on exactly where the policy would sit. But in terms of how we're reacting at the moment, I think that the main focus has been on staff. And in the area, the health and safety area that I'm sitting, we're not seeing any reporting coming through from incidents involving elected members. So
Is that because we don't have a framework by which we can do that? That's what I'm signaling.
point.
Okay. All right. Anything further? Councillor Kerry?
Just a really big comment about this. There was just a Radio New Zealand report a couple of days ago, because I've done the survey of LGN members, and there's quite significant information there about threats to governance teams nationwide, both on digital, online. I mean, the Nelson mayors found it was a home invasion or something there, wasn't there? And there was and there've been threats to kill and that. So I would say that if anything, it looked to me there's many threats to governance now than to staff nationwide. But I've talked about that in our symposium. But that, if you haven't read it, that report's of some interest a couple of days ago.
Thank you. Anything else, Stephen?
Not from that section. Can I?
Steve?
Yeah, I just want to clarify this graph on illness on your thing, just at 5.7. That's really cool because is that number, is that 2? Yeah, so with COVID and all that, that's, yeah, no, congratulations. We're not sick around here, that's good.
Sorry, yes, I see your point. So it's not including, so the illness part of that is any work-related illnesses, so exposure to biological hazards and it's not excluding the flu.
Oh, damn, I thought we were getting our money's worth.
Right. Okay. Anything? Oh,
Thanks, Chair Philip, if you would allow, just as a reminder, if anyone does experience any untoward behaviour, I always inform and notify the Chief Executive in the first instance and escalate that up if necessary. So if anyone does experience anything that we need to escalate in that way, please do so.
thank you. Councillor.
This almost
and it might sound silly, but I think we can create the frameworks, but just a bit of advice, and maybe my ex-policeman hat and ex-policeman hat, if you ever do feel unsafe, though, never feel scared to ring 111 or the authorities straight away. It's easier to deal with a lot of the situations at the time than historically, and I just think that in general, people's tolerance levels of what seems to be acceptable is increased, and I think there's a problem with that. Oh, that guy's just yelling and abusing at me, but he's harmless. Well, I don't think that's necessarily the case. So my advice would be to ensure that if you're ever in a position you feel unsafe in, or don't, try and get out of it, but also don't be scared to ring the police authorities, and even any other sort of events where of high risk fluoride and other things that's quite controversial, then the teams will be able to support all of that in terms that there is some security or something in place. I think our tolerance is increasing too high. We need to bring that back down.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. If we are going to jump onto the graphs, I have a quick question about those, but just as a really quick thing on this topic, LGNZ recently did a very, very good tabletop recorded talk on personal safety for elected members. So I would encourage colleagues to check that out. It was actually very good, had police involvement and had other elected members. I just wanted to have a quick look at 5.8, which Councillor Wallace was talking about, or he was on 5.7, but the event types. And one thing that jumped out at me here is I see that near miss reporting appears to have dropped right away, and it's always a bit of a hot topic for me, because near miss reporting is a great lead indicator to be having a look at incidents. So I think I last raised it around March, and I see it shot straight up, but a request is to be really encouraging staff to be reporting near misses. It gives me a really good indication as to this general safety culture, if those are being reported openly and talked about. So.
Thank you. Yes, near miss reporting is low. Most of the near miss reports in March were from one of our main contractors, not the Tauranga Alliance, but another one. So that was really good. And so I take from that about the culture that they have, which was really good. But yeah, there's been a lot of effort into trying to increase near miss reporting.
It's always a difficult thing, but when it comes through, it's a great sign of maturity in that area.
Anything else? Anything else? Even in that report you want to highlight?
Yes, please, just a couple of things. Just in the risk management section at 6, in relation to solid waste, just confirming that the work's been done around Dannyvert Refuge Transfer Station, but we're still to finalise a contract for work to be done for health and safety at the other transfer stations. In terms of the Pahiatua water treatment plant incident back in 2020, initiated in February 2023, there's now a remedial action plan in place to deal with potential exposures and the damage that's being done to the plant. And in terms of the wastewater treatment ponds, we did a follow-up review and went to all of the wastewater treatment pond sites to look at those. And so that report's about to go to management, but it's going to recommend that we have a priority of fencing the Pahiatua wastewater treatment pond and the Ikitahuna wastewater treatment ponds, which don't currently meet minimum standards.
Anything else? No questions? That's Stephen. Oh, sorry, I'm going to just backtrack a little bit though. Couple of vehicle accidents. What's your process if there is a vehicle involved? Is there sort of a review of lessons learned, right, from that accident? And were there any lessons learned, right? Without actually, it's a no blame, but you know.
Yes, so for vehicle crashes, there were investigations done into the accidents. They were both in terms of fault with the other party, and there weren't any specific, am I right in this, Gillian, specific lessons learned that came out of either of those? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks.
I mean, that would have been just good to have in the report, right? Just in future. That yes, there was an investigation. No? Nothing learned. Right? Sometimes they might not have been. Sorry, they might not have been fault, right? But in hindsight, what I could have this differently to minimize the impact or something without actually taking. It's not a blame game. It's about lessons learned. All right. Thank you. Nothing further. No questions. Can I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Scott, second. So Allison, all those in favour, please say aye. Last but not least is our security report. Thank you, Alison. Take your report as read. Angela, great.
And there's nothing for that as well.
Is there one of those two? Sorry, I didn't go over the page. Right. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. So I'll take it that you've read the report and the policy. The key points are the scope in that we are covering people, the physical environment and data. And the other key point is the establishment of a security committee that we envisage might operate in a similar manner to the Information Management Governance and the Health and Safety Committee, so that there is a coordinated and planned approach to security across the organisation.
Thank you. Councillor Steve, got a question?
Yeah, quick one. How'd you get on with the blue screen, please? Or shut down the world? Were you affected?
No. Very simple answer, like those, thank you. Any other questions?
Just a quick one with my chair of the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee. Given that this is a new one, is there an intent to include that in the framework by which that committee will? Okay. And just a comment, there seems to be an emphasis on IT. I know that the sites are included obviously in the assets. I mean, it's very timely with the discussion we had recently about the impound supply security. So there seemed to be more of an emphasis on IT in this than there was in other areas. Because it is included in the last bullet point, security of premises under 3.5, premises, assets and staff. But most of it's related to IT. Have I got the wrong gist? But no.
Given the risk appetite exercise that was done with elected members, I think, there was a very low tolerance for the digital risks. So I think it's appropriate for us to have quite a focus on me.
No, yes, I guess I'm just questioning the purpose then, if it was clarified that, because it's the second, under your executive summary, it's the last thing that's referred to in that sentence. That is actually the focus of the policy. You've talked about security of people, assets and resources and council's data info and systems. If the emphasis is on that, then there's a less.
Yep.
It read as an IT security policy, which if it had IT security policy, I wouldn't be phrasing the comments. Sorry, Chair.
The issue, look, I understand, right? And maybe.
I appreciate.
No, you're allowed to be pedantic because that's what I do, right? It is actually referred to in the, I'm not defending anyone here. It is on 6.2 of the policy, right? But I wonder whether it might need a little bit more emphasis, because sometimes, physical security and IT security actually go hand in hand, right? So the question I have then to Councillor Sharon, right? If you read the policy, right, is 6.2 of the policy adequate, or does there need to be more emphasis on the policy, not the report, right, but the actual policy? That would be my question, right? And if you look, to me, it is implied through also the 6.1 in terms of people, security as well. So the question I have, is it more about the covering report, which is about council's risk appetite was low for IT because of the huge cost, right? We've just seen when we've actually had someone hit the wrong update switch, right? What actually that meant for organisations, some organisations. I hear your concern. Right? Do you want to make any further comments?
I understand the apparent disparity between the report and the policy. I didn't mean to particularly focus on the data type security risks in the policy, in the report, but in the policy we have covered the three aspects.
But my question back to Councillor Sharon is having read, 6.2 in the policy, is that in your opinion adequate, or does it need further enhancement? That's my question.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I get a sense that the policy itself is a cut and paste from other organisations, possibly. I also, there was some disparity between the titles of a chief security advisor and a chief advisor. Are they the same people? Because under governance and roles, in the policy itself, you refer to a chief security advisor, and then the chief security advisor is the, I say you've defined. So, yeah. The chief security advisor is the chief advisor. Got it. Okay.
Right. Any other further questions and comments? I've got one. We don't actually have a review date or review process in here. I couldn't see one. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would. Oh, it is. Sorry. It's on the bottom.
10.8 in the policy.
Yeah. I mean, the question is, right, minimum of 2 years. Sorry, my apologies. Right. I just review, right? Just looking at my notes. Is 2 years adequate considering the changing environment that we're actually in? And should we actually be doing a once over lightly on an annual basis and a formal review in 2 years or some, you know, I'm sorry, Sharon, IT's changing, but also security is changing as well, right?
Point taken. Generally speaking, our review frequency is an indication. Any policy, when we discover something happening in our environment that might affect how a policy works or the content of a policy, we will absolutely review any policy at any time, not necessarily just wait till the review date. However, would you like us to be clearer about that in the policy?
To be honest, right, minimum of 2 years, right? But I think there needs to be an indication, right? Look, I hear what you're saying is we're always looking at, but to me that we just need sort of what are the trends, right?
I'll hand to Shane in a second. He's obviously got something to say. That can be a role of the security committee, is to be constantly observing the environment and determining what the triggers might be for a review.
I'm comfortable with that. Councillor Steve, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say what you said, but I was also going to ask, reflected history. History will tell you things too. So historically, have you ever had any problem with your review dates, periods? Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Right.
I don't know whether I'm speaking or not, just to assist Angela. I'm Shane Beverley, I'm the IS manager, and I worked with Stephen and Angela to develop this policy. And it's quite a comprehensive, high-level policy. It wasn't a cut and paste, likely. And the detail of how it will be enacted is from the procedures and processes that will come from this policy that are the responsibility of the managers that the committee will ensure happens. And reviewing it, yes, we thought at least every 2 years, but in reality, other policies such as the ICT acceptable use policy, that's been updated 4 times now in the last 18 months, because as things do come to hand, we try and update them as quickly as we possibly can.
That gives me assurance. Thank you. All right. So we've got a recommendation back on page 141. Moved Councillor Steve, seconded. I'll second, so I haven't done it today. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. 6.8 privacy breach report. Take the report as read.
I'm speaking with my privacy officer hat on for this report. And the report just outlines a privacy breach that was experienced and the processes we followed to report it through to the Privacy Commissioner. It's kind of like whether it was a notifiable breach, met the test for that, but we thought we'd be take the approach that it's better to report it when it's not quite notifiable rather than not report something that should have been reported. And the Privacy Commissioner reviewed the event and was happy to close the case on it, happy that no damage had been done.
Any questions? Councillor Scott, are you prepared to move? Sorry. You'll make the recommendation. Scott will second. All those in favour? Aye. Right. Can I have a mover that we move into public excluded? Yeah. Councillor Scott, those in favour, please say aye. Recording for 30 seconds.